Unfortunately, as you know, Matt's not here. So it's just going to be us two talking about stuff that isn't related to Chelsea for the rest of the podcast. And I guess a good starting point is Liverpool. Bit of a mixed week. They lost their home Anfield record and then beat Tottenham. So, Anthony, what do you make of Liverpool's week?
Well, so there was also in between there the FA Cup fixture with United.
Oh yeah, I actually kind of forgot about
that. Upset that we lost to Burnley, but in a way, almost the home record being gone's a relief in a way. If that makes sense. Like I wished we could have beat Chelsea's, but now it's not there. There's not that.
It's a monkey off your back now. It's just sort of no.
Yeah, it's just there's not that pressure about it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's so in a way it's a bit of a relief because it was gone. I was like, I'm annoyed it's gone, but I was more annoyed by just Liverpool's continued crossing into the box to no one and they're passing from side to side that they were doing over the last few games. But we saw more of how Liverpool should play against United. Yeah, they lost, but they played much better, I thought, especially for like
a very even 15.
Game. Yeah, I think in a way you could have argued that in some points Liverpool, because Liverpool were leading twice. And like I say, Salah looked good, Firmino looked good, and a few others. And then we had the Tottenham game, which some people argue Liverpool didn't create great chances. It's just Tottenham's poor defense. I disagree. I think it was a bit of both. What I mean is like Henderson's pass to Milne that set up the first goal. That was good attacking work as well as the defense switching off a bit towards the end. The Salah goal that was disallowed, that was a good team goal. The Mane goal was good. Yeah, okay, you can argue it was poor defensive work, but once again, we've seen those kinds of goals from every team. So it was like you can argue that almost any goal besides the truly great ones is poor defensive work or good attacking work. But I was happy with what I saw. Thiago looked much better. Wijnaldum looked good. Trent had his best game of the season so far. Nat Phillips did well when he came on. Like he did well against Son. Bear in mind, Nat Phillips moves about the speed of a freight train turning. Robertson looked good, but when is he not? Henderson at centre back has actually been really good, even though that's not his natural position.
He almost like kind of like a old fashioned libero at centre back, kind of just coming way up the pitch as a centre back. It was pretty interesting to see actually.
In the games he's played at centre back, Jordan Henderson, he hasn't been dribbled past.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
I know it's only 3 games, but considering he's a midfielder, box to box more likely than defensive.
Is he inventing a new box-to-box centre-back position?
But also, Henderson shouts, though, like he's so vocal, which is excellent. Milner had a good game against Tottenham.
Solid, yeah.
Mane, Firmino, and Salah looked good again. Salah was a bit unlucky, could have pocketed a few chances. Mane,
that's the best Mane's played in weeks, I thought. He was outstanding.
Well, because he kept in this thing where he'd just try and beat players one-on-one and he kept losing. I'm like, just stop it. Just play with Firmino coming back, getting the ball, bringing it up. That was the best game he's had this season as well. So there's a lot of good, and hopefully that's the end of Liverpool's poor run. And like I say, because you do have it where teams go on poor runs. You know, Arsenal went on theirs, Chelsea still have been on theirs, Tottenham have went on one, Man United at the beginning of the season. You know, they happen to teams. The issue is Liverpool had it at the worst possible point. They had 5 or 6 in a row. It wasn't like 2 here and then 2 there and then. You know, they had 5 or 6 in a row where they just couldn't get anything going. And it was infuriating to watch, frustrating. But Liverpool's issues at the club this month have been lack of recruitment, which, yeah, you can argue due to finances and due to COVID. But in my estimation, if you're relying on getting top 4 to continue your finances in the aspect you want, you kind of need to gamble a bit now to guarantee if you don't go out for a centre back and we don't get top 4, that you're going to lose more money than if you spent 15 million now.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm guessing the Liverpool board are confident enough that Fabinho can do a job or Henderson can do a job, but it's very risky.
Well, it's the fact Fabinho's now injured, not serious long term, but he's out for the West Ham game, and Matip is made of glass. And Gomez is out for the rest of the season. Van Dijk's out for the rest of the season, maybe coming back right at the end because he's rehabbing much quicker than people originally thought. Nat Phillips is a good championship defender in a lot of ways. Like he's strong. He heads the ball clear. His positional sense is good.
He's
His
just
issue
your
is,
standard old-fashioned sort of centre
yeah,
back.
he's not quick and he can't play with the ball at his feet, which unfortunately are two things that Klopp likes in the centre backs. He likes ball-playing defenders, and Manat Phillips and Reece Williams are not those. Liverpool are currently looking for centre backs, and there's been looking at New York Red Bulls centre back, the USA captain, I believe his name's and what's his name?
He was linked with West Ham
Basically,
a couple of years
and
ago.
then they've also, yeah. So basically, considering the MLS is looking like it's done for now, or done for the foreseeable future, it's not the worst idea to try and get him on a loan for the end of the season, or even if New York Red Bulls aren't going to be playing and they haven't played a lot recently, they might want their captain to have a bit.
I mean, playing in the Premier League is a very good experience, and he could probably come back a much better player.
Absolutely.
Sort of a win-win.
It's so basically they're trying to buy someone before Monday, which is the deadline, and it's Aaron Long, 28-year-old USA captain. Like I say, he's quick, he's got a good attitude, and he can play the ball at his feet. So he's the kind of defender Klopp would want. You've seen names like Mustafi floated around. Mustafi's better than no one, but he's better than getting no one in. But he's not the kind of centre back you do want. You know what I mean? Like he has the odd good game, but he's a worse Lovren, in my opinion.
If you could,
what were your thoughts on the Liverpool game then?
Okay. To be honest, I think it was. As you said, it was a bit of Liverpool attacking well and Tottenham not being great defensively. But I think it was more Tottenham's defensive mistakes, because Liverpool have been doing the same thing in these games that they haven't won. They have been attacking and they have been getting in those positions. But the main reason they haven't been scoring is because teams have been defending well. As we saw in that Southampton game, Walker Peters was flawless the whole game and the centre-backs were great. Tottenham their defence just switched off. It just seemed.
Yeah, I get your point, but I also will say they weren't doing everything the same, because against Burnley and against previous teams, Trent was hitting in 20+ crosses.
To be fair, that was the difference, I think. Trent actually turning up was the difference.
No, but he also, instead of hitting 20 crosses, he hit 3. So they're playing the ball around the midfield more. They're passing it to feet. They're keeping it on the ground.
Yeah, they looked like they had a lot more tempo to their game. They sort of moved the ball a lot quicker.
I kept saying, move the ball on the floor. Don't keep crossing it, because to me that wasn't working, especially against teams like Burnley who have got big centre backs. Why are you crossing the ball in? Salah and Mane are not going to beat Ben Mee and Tarkowski in the air. They're not. So why are you bothering to try that? Yeah, it's frustrating when teams sit back, but if you pass the ball around, if Thiago's up there sitting at the edge of the box with Mane, Firmino and Salah, you're going to get a few chances coming down. They were much more clinical, I think, because they were getting the chances before. They weren't taking them.
I also think having to take off Harry Kane at half-time really affected Tottenham really badly. Lamela basically did nothing when he came on, and they lost that sort of Harry Kane. They lost that sort of spirit of him coming back and defending with the team. They looked so much more vulnerable after half-time. Obviously, they switched from a back 5 to a back 4. And after
but they went to the back 4 because they had to attack, because they were 1-0 down.
But they had to attack, and they just completely got carved apart by Liverpool after they did that. Fair play to Mourinho for going for it, but yeah, they got destroyed.
The thing is, Liverpool right now, the good thing is if Liverpool come up against a team in the top half of the table now, the top half of the table side can't just sit back and defend the way Burnley did, or the way that Southampton even did when they did, because now it's different. Because you end in the second half of the season now, and every team's still in a shout of top 4. So you can't really afford to just sit back and play for the point, because of all the teams around you are going for it.
You can do that if you're Burnley, but if you're Tottenham, you can't be doing that.
But we have West Ham. West Ham can't afford to sit back and just play for the point against us, because that might hamper their chances of top 4 or European football this year. They have to go for the win, which works for us, because we work better when teams don't just sit back. Like when teams just sit back, like 10 men in the box, we can't do that, because not many people can beat 10 in the box. But when they've got maybe 3 or 4 in the box, or even 6, we can. And that's the difference. And I think that's going to be a big thing now. Liverpool need to build on this. It was one game. It was a good win. It ends their goal drought. But they need
give them
to
a bit of
build
confidence, at least. And also, with Tottenham in that game, just
Brighton.
another point on Tottenham. Because Tottenham's main strength is countering and then putting in that long diagonal ball to Son. And in the Liverpool game, their passes up to Son was so sloppy.
But there was a
Like,
few
it was so
where
wasteful.
Matip and Trent, and a few were in good positions. Like there was in the first half, especially, there was a few instances where Son was further, Matip wasn't in the right position, and that's the difference between a centre back and someone who in midfield who can play at centre back. The positional awareness that comes from experience of playing in that position. That was a big, big difference maker. And the first goal, people argue, it's harsh because Son was offside. We've seen tighter calls be called. You know what I mean? Like, it's harsh, but at the same time, we've seen harsher calls. And I'm kind of glad the Salah goal was disallowed because it kind of rolls out that that had been allowed. Like, you can argue it changes the game dynamic, sure, but you know, if you look at the Firmino handball, look at hits Dyer's hand, and Dyer's got his hand around Firmino's bloody neck. You know, like how I don't understand how that keeps happening. I've seen it in Liverpool games recently, where like Salah, Mane, and Firmino, they'll be showing highlights, and you'll see the players are grabbing them up here, like, and it's like, how is that not a foul? I get Salah can dive sometimes, like, but if someone's got his hand around here like that and pulling, how is that not being called up? That to me is not an elite. It's not
Hugo Lloris had a very poor game as well. He was just really bad. His positioning was all off. I think for that second goal, he could have got a better hand on it. Probably could have palmed it away, but it just seemed too powerful.
No, he's at fault for the second goal. Yeah, because that was just good Liverpool play, and then Trent, then he parries it away poorly, and Trent just takes it. The third goal, you can argue should have cleared it, but again, like when you look at the bounce and when Milne comes in, I don't think there's much more the defender could have done besides get there earlier. Like by the time the ball's bounced in front of him, it's too late. He had to have head it away before the bounce.
In general, it was just kind of an off day for Tottenham in general, really. I think the only players that covered themselves in any glory was Ndombele and Højbjerg. I think they were the only two players that did all right. Højbjerg, everyone else was shocking.
Best goal of the game. Højbjerg, best goal of the game, though. I will say that we had this conversation during the week, so people aren't aware. Thiago, playing in an attacking role in midfield, much better. You harped on about being the new Jorginho. How many seasons has Jorginho been in the league now? This is the third season, yeah?
2 or 3.
Yeah. He came in under Sarri, and then Lampard's had a season, and then Lampard's had another half season. So that's 2.5 years, right? Thiago has played less than 10 games for Liverpool in the league this year. How can you write him off after just 10 games, Stephen?
I'm not so. The thing with Thiago is, I'm not doubting his talent. He's clearly got talent. I just think he doesn't suit Liverpool in general. The
thing is, though, he hasn't. Like the plan was to bring Thiago in a midfield of Henderson and Fabinho. Thiago has played one game in that midfield of those three, and that was the Everton game where Thiago was man of the match. So the point is, it's impossible to really judge him when, if you look at Liverpool's team right now, they have not been able to field the team Thiago was meant to be brought into. You know,
that is fair enough, but I think obviously with Thiago, he is one of the best passers in the world. He's up there with the likes of De Bruyne.
That's why he was brought in. He was brought in to break defenses where our usual attacking plan didn't work.
Because with Liverpool, that's why high tempo, high energy, and he isn't really that sort of player who's necessarily got that physicality about him. And I think at times he looks a bit sort of caught out.
As someone who's watched Liverpool every game for the last 4 years straight, and I'm saying that because beforehand I couldn't necessarily watch every game because I couldn't get to games that were on TV. Thiago, aggression-wise and strength-wise, no issue. In fact, actually, he might have to tone down the aggression. I think he's got a yellow card in the last few games, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, but he had his head busted open against Tottenham. He came back on 5 minutes later, so I'm not worried about his determination and drive. About getting the ball out quickly, he passes the ball along quicker than any of our players. Sometimes he'll get the ball and it's gone before, like he moves the ball really quickly. The thing is, Thiago didn't have time to train with the team properly because he came in, COVID, came back, injured. So what I mean is, he hasn't even had a preseason, right? Which is one thing. And then he hasn't had time during the season to fully train with the team properly. Well, I mean, Thiago next year will be the season where you have to focus on him more when Fabinho's back in midfield and Henderson's back in midfield.
I'll be happy to be proven wrong. I'm not necessarily saying he's been bad. I'm just saying he's been mildly underwhelming. For the hype that was built up around him, but I'm guessing it's kind of impossible to live up to the level of hype that he was under when he joined Liverpool. But
yeah, and like I
I
say,
think
also, I think he has to be given a chance. Like say, if he's bad after 30 games, if he hasn't had any standout games after 30 games, then maybe. But you got to allow players time. Like that's the issue in sport in general. I feel nowadays.
Yeah, I think once you get everyone back and you can play what you usually play and in the system you usually want to play, I think it will come good. But he just needs time, and he needs also for Liverpool's a Van Dijk to come back so they can play their usual midfield.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Thiago's been playing further back to provide coverage, which means he isn't up further up the pitch hitting those passes. So his main aspect of the game that he's brought in for, he can actually do. Whereas against Tottenham, when Milner and Wijnaldum were playing further back and Thiago was going forward, you noticed a difference. In my opinion, Thiago looked excellent against Tottenham.
It's very similar to like Paul Pogba in a way, because whenever he has to do more defensive work and he has to drop more deep, he's never as good as when he's more advanced. And I think, again, Thiago's sort of struggling from that right now just because he has to play more deep. And hopefully in the future we can see him more advanced.
Like, you do have midfielders like Bruno Fernandes would be useless if he was playing in a defensive role. You know what I mean? Like Kevin De Bruyne playing a defensive role would be useless, whereas Rodri in an attacking role would be useless. You know what I mean? Like players have different aspects, even in midfield, that they're good at. And like what means like some of the best strikers in the world, Lewandowski and Haaland and such, could not do the kind of role that Firmino does at Liverpool with the dropping back and the providing defensive coverage, running the ball up. They're target men. They're like they are the furthest man forward. They get the ball and they score. Whereas Firmino's role is completely different. That's not to say suddenly Lewandowski and Haaland are bad players if they were put in that role. It's to say that's not their role. That's not how they play the game. That's not how teams are built around them. And I do think that, like I said, Jota's supposed to be coming back soon. That'll be a great win for the team because he looked great before injury. It just means that you can shape things up. But I think the reason Jota did so well against teams was teams are used to defending against Mane, Salah, and Firmino now. Bringing Jota in is an unknown quantity. Teams can't defend against him the same way because they're built to defend against the other three. Like they've gone in with a game plan going, Mane does this, we'll do this. Firmino does this, we'll do that. Salah does this, so we'll put someone on him.
Yeah, even the best, again, like over time, even the best three players up front are going to get figured out, or they might have off periods.
Yeah.
So you need to shake up every now and again. I mean, you can't rely on those three forever. I think Jota was a step in the right direction.
Turning 29 now. So obviously Jota is the player for the future. He's 23, right?
Yeah.
So Jota's going to be the replacement for, in a way. You've got Harvey Elliott, who's killing it on loan. He's looked excellent. Like people thought he wouldn't do anything, and he's literally one of the best players in the Championship right now.
Yeah.
Like he looks like, when you're talking about young English players with high ceilings, I don't think there's many that have as high a ceiling as Harvey Elliott right now.
Yeah, he just looks fantastic. Like he looks like a player who's played for 5 years already.
Especially in the Championship, which is a much more aggressive and like tougher league. Like you can't do the same kind of skillful plays that you see in the Premier League, or you see in Spain, or you see in like France and such. But he's doing it in the Championship, and he's got the strength, and he's keeping up with it. So I can't wait to see him come back and how he does in a Liverpool side. He looked good for us in the few games he did play. Bear in mind, he was 16, 17. He's still got a few years before he even hits 20. He'll probably be in that Liverpool team before he hits 20.
I think next season he'll probably be loaned to like one of the Premier League teams near the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's the right choice for him. But I don't think we need to buy someone to replace Salah per se. Like if Salah goes, I think we've got a ready-made replacement in Harvey Elliott in time. Well, if Salah gets sold this summer, right, and Jota goes, and Mane moves over to the right, and Jota moves to the left, or Jota's on the right, and that's fine. And then when Mane goes, Jota moves to that position, Harvey Elliott comes in. So then it's who do Liverpool bring in as the third in that new front three that's forming? Which if you look at it, Liverpool have already got a few pieces in place for their new Klopp's second team, right? Van Dijk, I think, will still be in that Liverpool team because I think Van Dijk's a lot like Ramos. He'll adapt as he gets older and continue to be a top defender. Like,
Yeah.
because Van Dijk's key asset isn't his pace or his strength, it's his brain. You know, like, he's such a smart defender.
But he is very quick and very strong too, which helps.
No, he is. No, he is. What means as he loses a step, he'll adjust his game to counter it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like the way Ramos has and the way that Terry did, like all these great defenders who adapted as they got older. I think Van Dijk would do the same. So I think he'll still be there. Robertson's only 26 still, so he'll be around by the time Klopp leaves still. Trent speaks for itself. Curtis Jones, Fabinho's 28, I think now, 27, 28. So maybe like a few Liverpool players will be the other side of 30 when Klopp goes, but you got a few that was being their prime or entering their prime. So Liverpool just need a few more signings, and they've got a new team, so to speak.
Yeah, I think they're fine for now.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, we talked about Liverpool quite long there, so let's talk about. Should we talk about Manchester City?
Yeah.
Like
outright favourites at this point. Yeah,
I think they have to be. Obviously they smashed West Brom 5-0. Is Sam Allardyce finished? Is he washed up?
I mean, I think in a different team, maybe not. I think it's a counteracting of West Brom aren't good enough, regardless of Sam's tactics. And I don't think Sam's at this point able to adapt anymore. He knows what he knows, and that's it. So I think it's just it's a perfect storm of shit. I think that's the best way to sum up. I think Sam Allardyce in a team with maybe a team that's doing slightly better, but is still a relegation fighting team.
Like when people have been saying this season, are Sheffield United the worst Premier League team of all time? I would say they're not even the worst Premier League team this season. West Brom have been worse than Sheffield United.
I think it's more Sheffield's stats, their goals.
Because when you look at Sheffield, when they've lost games, they haven't been absolutely dominated and thrashed. It's like they lose by 1 or 2 goals and they've just been unlucky mostly. But West Brom, they have been spanked over and over again.
A third of Sheffield's goals this season have come in Manchester. So, it's not like they've been doing brilliantly and just been losing. Oh, they're losing 1-0 right now anyway. To Man City. We are currently recording this as the Man City Sheffield games going on. Everton lost 2-0 to Newcastle, by the way. So there's another team that were doing badly and or have won. Good that Everton lost because we need now all the teams around us to
Steve Brewster, Jordi Mourinho.
So I'm just having a look at Sheffield now. So Sheffield have 1-2, drawn 2, lost 16. They've got 8 points from 20 games. So from a possible of 60 points, they have got 8.
But like I said, Sheffield, they haven't been getting the results. But in terms of who's played worse this season, I think West Brom have played worse than Sheffield. I think just Sheffield just haven't had that quality to quite get over the line. They've been mildly unlucky in my opinion. But West Brom, they are just shocking. They are terrible. They are so bad. To be fair, they didn't even look that good in the Championship last season. It was just the case of everybody else was also quite shit, apart from Brentford, who just bowled it.
I think Leeds were the only team in the current, the 3 that came up that anyone thought anything of. Fulham and West Brom, everyone's kind of written off from the start.
To be fair, Fulham have really turned it around.
There's still 2 wins, 7 draws, and.
But I mean, in terms of, I actually look forward to watching Fulham play now. When I see their game has got Fulham playing, I'll watch that game.
Well, I believe they're beating West Brom right now.
That's a big game.
West Brom vs Fulham. It's 1-0. Half an hour played.
Basically, that Fulham team, it's basically Lookman carrying that whole team on his back. He's like, Lookman could keep Fulham up. Like if he gets injured, they're finished. I mean, without him, they just look terrible. But with him, they look like a team that could actually survive.
So back to Man City.
Yes.
What do you think is the difference this year? So they've barely had an attacker this year, right? De Bruyne is now injured. The shout out player, in my opinion, for this season for Man City is Gundogan.
Gundogan has turned into like a prime Johan Cruyff this season. He is. It's unbelievable how good he's been.
Everything's clicking. It doesn't mean that I think he's now a brilliant top of the league player. I think he's just had a ridiculously good season.
Like I can compare it to, there was a Brentford player called Tomani Diagoraga who everybody writ off, and then we got promoted to the Championship, and literally he was playing like a prime Kante, and then he got sold to Leeds. Then he was shit, and now he plays in like League Two. So
Yeah,
I just think it's a case of he's just in the form of his life right now.
I do think City's defense has sharpened up as well. Their issue, even when they were winning the league, was always their defense was a bit shoddy. Their defense, John Stones, Diaz,
I think it's now
Laporte.
it's now you cannot say now Ruben Dias has been a flop, and people who are saying that.
I don't think he's been a flop at all. I still think he was worth his 60 million fee. The argument is if he's made Man City this defensively solid, yes, but still.
I think he was more worth it than Nathan Ake was. That's for sure.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm not disputing that, but that's because I don't think Nathan Ake was worth his fee regardless. Whether the two separate points in my mind. But I mean, is it down to Brahim Diaz or is it the resurgence in John Stones as well? Is it Ederson?
Both.
Can you give it all?
Well, I think the resurgence of John Stones is mainly down to being partnered with Ruben Dias. I just think he seems like someone who really cares, and he's a leader, which we've said Man City have been lacking. I think he has that. Same with
when they lost company. Yeah,
I think he's had an amazing impact on the City team. There's two Portuguese players having a massive impact on Manchester teams. I think Dias just had that sort of similar impact.
Like the argument always was with Van Dijk was he worth his fee? And bear in mind, Van Dijk changed Liverpool's defense almost overnight. The argument is yes, and then they won their first Premier League title, they won the Champions League. I think the only way you can guarantee Brahim Diaz is a success is if he gets City, if he's part of the key reason City get over their hump, which is the Champions League. What I mean is that's the trophy Pep wants. That's the trophy City keep missing out on. That's the trophy they're aiming for. Like, yeah, they won the league. They've won the league plenty of times so far this past decade, but the Champions League, even when they should go through against teams like OL, they bottle it.
I think also you're down to the fact that they don't have to play Fernandinho at centre back anymore. They can now play him in midfield, and he's doing bits there.
I do agree. I think Man City is theirs to lose right now. I think
Phil Foden's been fantastic this season. He's really stepped up, and again, there's a lot of pressure on him to sort of live up to the mantle of David Silva, and I think he's doing a pretty good job. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's no David Silva yet, but I think he's on that path to being that sort of level of player.
What youngster do you think this season deserves more praise? Saka at Arsenal or Phil Foden at Man City?
Who do I think is the better? I think Foden's the better player, but in terms of how much impact they've had on their respective team, I think Saka's probably had more of an impact on Arsenal.
Yeah,
because Foden is just a brilliant player surrounded by other brilliant players.
Yeah, that's someone said if you put Saka in that City team, and put Foden in that Arsenal team, the point is it's unfair to compare when you look at the players around them, but when you look at how much Saka does for Arsenal, Saka's playing like a very experienced player already. Foden still plays like a young player in my mind.
I'll hold my hands up and admit, I did write off Saka a few months ago, and he's really proven me wrong. Yeah, I think he's been brilliant. I think maybe he went through a bit of a wobble with Arsenal going through that wobble that they had. But ever since he's sort of stepped up, Arsenal as a whole have stepped up really.
I do think Man City, I think if Liverpool hadn't lost Van Dijk, I think we would have been seeing another two-horse race, to be honest. I think losing Van Dijk for the season and losing Gomez a month later for the season really messed up Liverpool. So I think this year it's City's to lose, but I wouldn't count Liverpool out of the title.
I wouldn't count anyone out.
No, I wouldn't, because Man City could lose 2 games in a row or draw 3, and suddenly the league looks much closer. You know what I mean? Liverpool could have went, I think, 8 points clear when they drew to West Brom.
Well, here's a question. What do you think about Man United now? Obviously, they lost. They had that embarrassing defeat to Sheffield. I admit I didn't watch the games. I do think it'd be that interesting.
I do have to condemn the people that were abusing Tunisia.
Yeah, obviously, nobody wants to see that.
It's disgusting. It's the same way that people were abusing Reece Williams after the Man United loss. It's like, they're young players. They're going to make mistakes. Give it a break. Especially when it's racially charged. Get out.
It's football. Football Twitter is just cancer, and they'll just throw anything.
Yeah, it's awful. I think Man United they do look like a top 4 contender. I do not think they're a title contender right now. I think they're too self-reliant on one player. If Bruno goes down for 4 months, I think United are messed up more than Liverpool with Van Dijk and more than Man City with Laporte.
Oh, that's a bit of a hot take.
Well, come on, look at it.
I agree that it obviously will have a big impact, but more than Van Dijk, Liverpool losing Van Dijk. Well,
yeah, because we were top for 2 months after we lost Van Dijk. The loss of Van Dijk has only been felt this month. Like, yeah, it sucked because of stuff, but when Gomez and Fabinho were in defense, we were still good. And the issue
I
hasn't
mean, they
been
do have
like goals conceded. The issue has been because our defense, we don't have centre backs. It's weakened our midfield and attack.
just to play devil's advocate here. I mean, they could put Pogba in that position. They could
I
put
don't
Van
think
der
he does
Beek
it
in
the
that
same
position.
way.
Obviously,
I
Van
don't
der
think
Beek's not been that good,
I don't
but
think either do it the same way. I think everything goes for Bruno there, the same way everything goes for De Bruyne at Man City. But I
because
think
when I
Man
look at that Man
City's
United
squad
team,
is
the
better.
only player who looks like he cares and he actually wants to do well is Bruno Fernandes. I think all the other players there, they look like they're
The
not
other one I
bothered.
would say is the only other one I'd say that I genuinely believe wants to do well at United and does bloody care is Rashford, because he is a
Yeah.
local boy. Yeah, I mean, like you can tell the local kids still care. Like the Liverpool United rivalry games do not feel as intense as they did, but those players, Rashford, Trent, Curtis Jones, those players do care because they grew up on it.
Hmm.
The
But
Scousers and the Mancs in those teams
I just want
care.
to say, in that Liverpool FA Cup game, Harry Maguire looked absolutely shocking. He looked
Mm.
like he couldn't pass to save his life. It was
The best player I've
depressing.
seen in the two games against Liverpool, the best player in United's defense was Luke Shaw. He was pissing me off.
Yeah. Obviously, I think in that Sheffield game they played Telles instead, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think that was the difference, not playing Luke Shaw.
This is the joke. So this is so in the NFL this season in the draft, right? There's a story behind this. This is why I'm getting to it. Green Bay, the Packers, who went to the NFC Finals championship, got knocked out the game before the Super Bowl, right? They drafted a quarterback in the first round when they've got one of the greatest quarterbacks of the last 30 years on their team, right? And people are like, why have you done this? Why have you done this? You've still got this guy. Yeah, he's getting older now. He's not as good as he used to be, but he's still very good. It was very clear why they'd done it, because that player that was past it is going to win MVP. He went on a tear. So I think United have done the same thing. They brought in Alex Telles to make Luke Shaw wake up and play like a bloody pro. And I think I think it's 4D chess by Ollie and Ed Woodward, bringing a left back. So it was the same even with Alberto Moreno when Robertson came in. That first season, Moreno had his best time in a Liverpool shirt when Robertson was brought in.
Well, you could also say Van der Beek coming in has made Bruno Fernandes even better, possibly.
Possibly. It's definitely made Pogba, I think, better in some regards. But I think the problem with Pogba is he'll have a couple of months where he's incredible and then he'll be shit for the rest of it. Martial's hit or miss. Cavani he's good. He's experienced, but let's be real, Cavani's not a long-term solution. Really, Rashford, Bruno are the two key players you're building that team around now.
Yeah, it's a team of overpaid divas with a manager who doesn't really know what he's doing and is just there because of luck.
I will disagree about the manager not knows what he's doing, because I think United have looked the best they've looked since Ferguson left. I know they finished second under Mourinho, but the way they're playing, the way their team
to be fair to Ollie, I think
they look better.
I think he has a very good relationship with his players, and I think he's a good man manager.
Yeah,
but he's not all there tactically.
No, I think that will be what separates him from the likes of Guardiola and Klopp, because like Guardiola's not as good a man manager as Klopp. He's probably a better tactician, but Klopp's an excellent man manager and a very good tactician. I think Ollie has done well, but I think it's because he's also been given the time to do well. We discussed Lampard and
the fact that he has superstars in every position on the pitch, which helps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He inherited quite a few great players. Like who did Klopp inherit? Coutinho and Firmino. That was it. At that time, who were considered good players. Henderson wasn't considered a good player at that time, even though he is.
Are you saying Ricky Lambert isn't a world-class player?
Don't hate on Ricky. No, I think United, but that's the thing. United went on this monster tear. They're title contenders. Look how bad Liverpool are doing. Right now, they're only 3 points ahead of Liverpool. So Liverpool had a full month of playing badly. I saw someone on BBC say Liverpool's tactic. Okay, we'll let them catch up. Now let's go for it. But that's the point. Like, I really dislike in sport in general. It happens in media in general, but sport media in general, the flip-flopping, Arteta needs to go. Arsenal look like relegation side. Arsenal now can compete for Europe a month later. Tottenham are title contenders. The title race is between Chelsea, Tottenham and Liverpool. A month later, Lampard sacked. Liverpool are going to struggle to finish top 4, top 6 right now. Now they're not at the title race now.
They know what they're doing in the media. They know how to get the clicks, how to get the views.
Yeah, I think that's it now. There's no actual, there's some good insight and analysis, but a lot of it is they just find the hot take. Like, it's not as bad as American media. American sports media, ESPN, is outrageous. Some of the things they come out with is absolutely hilarious. I saw someone talk about their top 5 sportsmen of the decade, and both Ronaldo and Messi were not on that list. Neither of them were. And I'm like, how are you going to miss out those two? I get it's America, but come on, But anyway, about that. So I was a bit like, come on, like, look, Liverpool have won now. That's great. And they did play well. Yeah, Tottenham didn't play brilliantly, but Liverpool played well. They changed up their tactics. They were more aggressive. They were more direct.
The Liverpool we're used to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if they can build on it, if they beat West Ham, or at least play well, it's more about the playing well that was bothering me than the results. The results weren't great, don't get me wrong. But like, yeah, we lost to United in the FA Cup, but I was happy because we played well.
It was much better than the Premier League fixture between those two, let's say that.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like, Liverpool hadn't been playing well, and there was multiple reasons for it, but they started playing well now in the last couple of games. And if they can build on this, if they get a result of West Ham, anything other than defeat, I'm not praying for 4-0 or anything, but we have a good track record against West Ham, especially in the London Stadium. But I think it's now just taking it a game at a time. I'm not focused on the league. I'm focused on just game at a time. We've got Brighton after that. We have Man City, Leicester, Chelsea, Everton. If we got good points from them, because all those teams are going to have to attack us, which works for us, albeit our defense isn't looking great right now, like from pressures put on them. But it works for us in an attacking sense, if that makes sense.
So obviously we're both saying that City are the title favourites. Who do you think is finishing? Obviously, I think the main favourites to finish top 4 right now, Liverpool, Leicester, United. Out of those 3 teams, who's finishing 2nd, 3rd, and 4th right now, in your opinion?
It's still early days, so honestly, I can't comment. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to decide this right now because Liverpool have been on a bad run of form, but on paper, they've still got probably the 2nd, if not the best squad. City have got the best squad in the league. Liverpool have got the 2nd best squad in the league. I don't think there's any debate there, really. I think Liverpool, if they can build on this and don't go on another poor run, will finish 2nd. I still think they could finish 1st, to be honest. Obviously, now City are the favourites, but you can't count any of the others out. I think Liverpool are 2nd. I think Leicester are 3rd. I think United are 4th. Because United are doing another blip.
I would probably agree with that.
I think we're going to see Chelsea have a resurgence briefly, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think, I can't pronounce his name properly, but it's Tuchel. I think he'll be gone by the end of the season. I don't think he's a long-term fix. I think Arsenal are doing another bad run of form at some point. I think Tottenham are hitting theirs. I think teams like Everton, Villa, West Ham, Southampton are all going to drop a bit. They'll all still be there, like still competing towards the end and top 10. But I think all these teams have had good runs of form, but the only teams that have had bad runs of form this season are Arsenal, Chelsea, like for teams that are like competing European slot wise, are Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool. I don't think any of these had a massive
in that category as well.
Wolves as well. Wolves as well. I think we're due a poor Everton run at some point. We're due each team's going to have a
maybe it started today.
Maybe it could. I mean, they drew against Leicester, which I'm happy with as well. That's why I really wanted us to be Tottenham.
Everton drew. They didn't play badly at all in that game. They looked dominant in the first half. Again, Leicester just came out better in the second half.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just saying
even game.
Drew. I'm happy with the result. It's nice to be on Rival Watch again. I haven't been on Rival Watch in 2 years. Where I'm actively invested in how other teams are doing. Like besides Man City, the season where we lost by a point, I wasn't checking really other teams' scores because they were out of my thoughts. I do think one thing that's to bear in mind is despite Liverpool only having 1 title in this spell of City and Liverpool dominance, and City having 2, possibly 3 this year, you can't just discredit Liverpool for the fact that they are a much smaller budget team. They've been built up from an 8th place finish to now, and they had 97 points, which is the highest, the 4th ever highest point total in Premier League history. It's higher than all the other title wins besides 3, and it's not a title winning point total. I think the 2 teams are having a bit of a spell now where things are going to get back to being competitive. But I still think they're the 2 best teams in England. I don't think really anyone would disagree with that unless you're a Man United fan.
Yeah.
I want Leicester to do top 4 because I think they're another team like Liverpool, smaller budget. They've just been really good tactics in bringing a team together. City and United can throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Bruno was brought in for 49 million.
More than that. I think it's more like 60, 55 to 60.
Right. But how many other players have United brought in for roughly that kind of fee that have been bad? Di Maria, flop. Pogba.
Alexis
Sanchez.
Henrik Mkhitaryan.
That's my point. They brought in so many players that have been bad. Just bad. So the thing is, are United, I think Liverpool and Leicester are more of that model of building a team for smart recruitment.
And your criticism, Man United, there is exactly why I was very critical of Aston Villa when they were in the Championship, because they were basically the same thing, just on a smaller scale, where they would just throw money at literally any player and just hope shit sticks. I mean, they've been getting rid of a lot of that dead wood in this January transfer window. They got rid of Henry Lansbury. They got rid of Conor Hourihane. So they've been getting rid of that dead wood that they just splurged up the wall.
Speaking of Villa, my final point I want to make on Liverpool, just when we're talking about transfers, I want Jack Grealish brought in the next year or so as a Henderson replacement for that kind of focal midfielder who brings the ball up, who's constantly pushed out to the sides, he's aggressive. Like I say,
I would argue he would be more of a Milne replacement.
Maybe, but I don't think he's got the same pace. I think he'd fit in the Henderson kind of role of playing just behind the way Trent and Salah. But
that's the good thing about Grealish, though. He's very versatile. He can play out wide. He can play down the middle.
To me, he screams a Liverpool player. You know what I mean? Like the right kind of he's not a diva. He's got the right kind of family orientation. He's got a lot of what Liverpool Football Club and City of Liverpool kind of do represent, more working class. Because it's Birmingham and Liverpool. You know what I mean? I do think he'd be a perfect replacement in a way. And obviously I really like Jack Grealish. I think when was the last time we had a player not on a winning, a title winning team or a top 6 team who was considered one of the best players in the league, like a player of the year contender?
Harry Kane has been that for years.
No, but Spurs have been top 6, top 4, nearly won titles. You know what I mean? Even Payet at West Ham that year, they still finished in a European space. Aston Villa haven't. They've only just avoided relegation last year, but Jack Grealish was considered one of the best players of 2020. So when was the last time this kind of happened? He is sticking to Aston Villa this year has changed them and changed the league in a lot of ways. And I'm so happy for
it. Jack Grealish is world class. He is outstanding. Again,
he's still only 25. Jack Grealish feels like he's been around forever because he broke into the team at 17.
He broke in very young, yeah.
Yeah, and he's been their captain since he's 22.
Yeah, I remember watching him when I went to Villa Park to watch them play Brentford, and he was playing then. And that was probably 3 or 4 years ago. So he's been playing consistently for 5 or 6 years now.
I do think he does more for his team and impact than any player in the Premier League does for their own respect. I think he's more important than Bruno is. I think he's more important than
relative to the team,
Mason Mount, more important than Jamie Vardy, more important than De Bruyne for their teams. I think Grealish is the most important player to his team out of any team.
Yeah, Aston Villa without Jack Grealish are a solid mid-table team. They're not even sniffing Europe.
The thing is, now because he signed that new 5-year deal, if they do sell him, he's made sure Villa looked after anyway. So even if he does decide to leave, he's making sure his team are looked after.
I think that's 70, 80 million we're talking.
You'll be lucky to get, bearing in mind the current market and values and money for all teams, it might be a bit lower than that. In a normal season, he would have been...
Well, before COVID, I think he would have been... We would be talking about maybe 100 million.
I think he would have been north of 70, definitely. I think it depends what team went in for him. But I think now you're looking at between 50 and 80. And the reason I'm saying that is due to the way teams' finances have been hit badly. Villa are not exempt from that. They might have to take 50 million for Grealish.
Because when you think about it, Raheem Sterling, he went for 55 million, didn't he? And he's that sort of similar sort of level of player. So
but once again, he went then in a non-COVID year, no financial hits. So again, you've got to look at the fact that Thiago went for 20. Admittedly, he was in the last year of his contract, but
and he's 29.
Yeah. So there's different things to put in place, but I think Grealish will go for less than he would have done in a non-COVID year if he does go in the next year or two.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else we want to discuss? We discussed
Well,
United.
should we move on
United?
to transfers? Let's talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about transfers, and that's a good way to break into Arsenal because they've probably been the busiest team out of the big teams in England this window, with 2 loan signings.
Obviously Odegaard. Who else?
Matt Ryan.
Oh, of course, Matt Ryan. Yeah, it's so forgettable, wasn't it? Who else? Oh, yeah, Matt Ryan. But
I think he was Brighton's starting keeper, or am I just remembering last year?
Well, I think he got injured, and then Sanchez came in, and he's done all right. So they've sort of kept faith in him.
Yeah.
So now, I think Ryan actually he's an Arsenal supporter.
Yeah, he did say when he was announced, he said like getting to play for your boyhood club.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy for him. Even if he doesn't play a game, the fact he's signed for his team that he supported, I'm always happy for. I love it when players get that opportunity.
Like Ricky Lambert going to Liverpool.
That
was Milner a sympathy signing.
James Milner going to Liverpool.
Is he a Liverpool supporter?
Obviously he was a Leeds supporter, but he had his other team was Liverpool.
Can't be having that 2 teams in the same country.
You can have a team that you like and a team you support and a team you like. Everyone wanted Leicester to win the league that year, even if they didn't support them. People like Southampton. Unless you're a rival.
Unless
fan.
you're Portsmouth.
Yeah. Do you know Portsmouth in the league? Anyway, what do we make of their other loan signing though, Arsenal?
Martin Odegaard, I think that is almost like a coup to get Martin Odegaard to Arsenal. That is huge.
Can he do it in the Premier League though? That's
the big question. That's the big question. We'll just have to wait and see.
He's been playing in Spain. He's been playing in Spain, barring a few odd loan moves. He's been playing his craft in Spain since he was 16. A much softer league. Let's be real, physicality wise. How is someone like Martin Odegaard going to cope again? I'm asking you this. How is he going to cope?
If we look at 2 of the best attacking
Ben
midfielders of the Premier League era of the 2010s, Juan Mata, David Silva, both came from Spain. Both did brilliantly. So
both were strong. Both were built stronger than Martin Odegaard. Neither were strong players, but both were built stronger. Martin Odegaard is still only 22. I believe both were also older when they joined.
Well, we got to think like Odegaard. He's a different sort of player. He's been playing at a high level since he was 16. Like he's got the level of football like a 25-year-old would normally have.
I think skill wise and ceiling wise and like actual play on the ball, he's great. My question is, how will he cope against the rougher Burnley's defense, or the likes of Tottenham, or the likes of if you're going up against Van Dijk, if Van Dijk was still in the league right now, I think Odegaard is a good get, and he does fill in a role they need because they've been lacking a creative midfielder because Ozil was unreliable and he's gone now.
I feel sorry for Smith Rowe. He's just broken into the team and now they've brought in someone else.
I do think they'll still plan to use him though because he's been excellent as well. But I think Martin Odegaard,
they'll need to obviously because of fixture congestion. They'll rotate and they'll put in Smith Rowe.
I think Martin Odegaard is an excellent get because, like I say, he's a key kind of player that they were missing. Obviously, they wouldn't have been able to get him on a transfer because
it's just a loan. So he's definitely worth the punt at least.
Yeah, and it's 6 months. It's till the end of the season. If it doesn't work, you go out and get someone in the window who can do a similar role, maybe a bit older, a bit more experienced. But let's be real, like it's a good get. I think it's what Arsenal need. Do I think it's going to push them from being currently 10th to top 4 contender? Not really. No, not really. I don't mean that in disrespect to them.
They're Europa League spot contenders now, though.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think there's the teams that right now look they could still finish top 4, but realistically, will they? Like Southampton are doing well, West Ham are doing well, but do we expect them to be genuine top 4 contenders by April?
It's a step in the right direction, at least.
Oh yeah, no, it is definitely. What other? So we've discussed Liverpool's need to get a centre back. There's been a few names linked there, but if someone's going to be announced, it'll probably be announced tomorrow, maybe Monday. Like that's going to be
Monday's can't get fine right now.
Yeah, it's like I said, they've been linked with a few players. I think Liverpool, because I think Klopp was saying that they want to get someone for short term, but who possibly could be a long term option. Because Liverpool never like to panic buy. They always have players in mind. So Liverpool have all their plans for players they're going to bring in the summer already lined up. I think that's clear from the press conferences we have seen. But obviously they need someone now. United brought anyone in?
Obviously they loaned out Jesse Lingard.
Yes, the great young player with high potential, Jesse Lingard, to West Ham. So either that is going to work out in West Ham's favour, or United have done it to knock West Ham out of the top 4 contenders.
Well, West Ham actually, they've made Ben Rama's signing permanent early as well. It was supposed to join permanently in the summer, but they've actually made it permanent now.
But it doesn't really do anything
It doesn't
besides the
really do anything,
finances
no.
have shifted a bit.
They only did that just because I think because of loan limits, they couldn't loan in Jesse Lingard if Ben Rama was also a loan player, so they had to sign him permanently now. But
Chelsea have sent Tomori out on loan to AC Milan. I would have loved Tomori to come to us because we needed a centre back on loan. But obviously that Chelsea wouldn't have given him to us.
It just puzzles me how he hasn't managed to play out over the likes of Rudiger and Christensen and players like that who have been
exactly.
pants.
Yeah, he's young, so he's got a high ceiling as well. But Milan are in a good space right now, so he might be useful for him to go there and do well there.
The more confusing thing is that there's an option to buy in there in that deal.
Oh, yeah, true.
So Milan could buy him in the summer.
Do we know what the amount is for?
I think it's 20 to 25 million.
It's not necessarily outside of AC Milan's range, but whether they want to risk that on an English centre back, I don't know. He could do. I think that's really poor from Chelsea, to be honest. That sounds like a really bad deal. Unless Lampard's playing 4D chess and plans to be the Milan manager in 6 months. No, I think. Has there been any other major signings? Like I say, this is a very quiet window.
Wolves have finally got in another striker. They've brought in Willian Jose. There we go, from Real Sociedad.
How has he been? I'm taking it he's either Portuguese or Spanish.
Brazilian.
Oh, so still same wavelength.
Yeah. He's basically a old-fashioned sort of target man sort of player, which kind of Raul Jimenez was. So they're basically bringing a like-for-like replacement for Raul Jimenez, really.
Do we have any time frame on when Raul Jimenez is back?
I haven't seen anything personally, no. But...
Yeah, because he could be out for a while still, or if he's back sooner. But basically, they needed a striker. They got one. That might help them now, as long as he can fit into the team relatively well. They brought Catrone back on loan.
Well, what we've seen from Wolves is basically they haven't had someone who can hold the ball up. Catrone can't do that. Fabio Silva can't do that. Now they got Jose, who can. He's your typical target man. He's big, strong. He can hold up the ball and he can finish.
Yeah,
and I mean that's just wait and see. I mean. Hopefully that's the sort of target man they now need. Could they push on? We'll just have to wait and see. But it's definitely a signing they were sort of forced to make, really. It wasn't like, he's a good addition. No, like they had to sign him.
But that's the thing. So like people have criticised. So a large thing with Liverpool criticised for the lack of getting a centre-back until now, right? But if you look at it on the whole, this window has been very quiet for everyone. Even Arsenal, who were the loudest, those 2 loan signings. So you can clearly see now, even though some teams were spending big in the summer during the COVID summer, it's hitting now.
I think the only signing that was in the double sort of. I think the only signing this January that's gone for anything other than like over £10 million was Aston Villa signing Morgan Sanson from Marseille. Again, an interesting one. I didn't really see that coming. I
think most teams are kind of working on the basis of there's no point trying to go for people in January because of finances. We're going to have to pay more. So they're kind of saving their money and have their plans in place to have money sitting there for the summer to use. So the likes of the Manchester clubs, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, they'll have their money for signing players set aside for this coming summer instead of spending it now, which makes sense. People overcharge in January to begin with unless a player's trying to force the way out. I think, like I say, COVID has hit financially now, like the loss of gate money for over a year almost now. There's more broadcast money floating around, but like...
Well, most of these January signings have been sort of loaned with the option to buy in the summer. So
exactly. So I think it's an interesting one. I think this is probably one of the quietest January windows we've had, and January overall tends to be quiet compared to the summer. But
January just tends to be panic buyers and players you just need.
It's urgent replacements, yeah. But like I say, I think it's an interesting one to see. I think there might have to be some sort of model brought in because, like I said, you've got the big teams that have suffered from loss of gate money, but they've still got money floating around. But the teams lower in the Premier League and teams in the Championship, they were already not so great financially as the big teams. They're going to suffer even more the longer that fans are out the stadiums. And we don't know when that will be. But then when they're back in, it could be March. It could be the summer. It could be starting next season. We don't know. We could be looking at a full lockout year.
Yeah. And So Brentford have been very lucky. They've made a load of money in player sales when we need to pay off the money on our new stadium. I mean, it was the worst time for us to open our new stadium when we can't
Yeah.
even let anybody in.
Well, we had planned to increase the seating in one of the ends of, I think it was the Anfield Road end, and obviously money was put aside. So I think part of the reason why we haven't been spending is money was put aside for that. So it's still there, right? But even though we can't begin construction right now, so like that, the plan was to do that in the summer, and then it was delayed, right? So I think they've set aside the money for when we can get this going. The money's there. We're not touching that.
It's the reason why Brentford haven't gone on a mad signing spree with all the money they've come in, because basically most of that money is probably going to go towards repaying our stadium.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Like I say, it's interesting to see because I think isn't Tottenham's repayment of their stadium over the next 50 years.
Yeah, they're probably going to be paying that off for the rest of Daniel Levy's lifetime.
Longer than that, mate. Longer than that.
Probably, yeah. Even when he's gone, they're probably still going to be paying that off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great stadium. Don't get me wrong. It's the nicest looking stadium in England.
Oh, it's a lovely stadium, yeah.
I do think it's. I mean, it's shaped from a toilet, like from the above, which is funny. But yeah. Oh,
are they still hosting NFL games there? Even though
not this year, no NFL games for this year. But the contract for UK based NFL games ran out at the end of the season, so we'll know in the summer if they plan to renew it. But it could be that thing where they don't renew it until they're able to come back over again. Because there's going to be 20,000 fans at the Super Bowl, which for anyone who is interested in getting to know American football is on next Sunday, and is probably the most hype, biggest build Super Bowl of all time, because you've got the greatest of all time in Tom Brady going up against the current best quarterback who has potential to dethrone him as the greatest of all time by the end of his career, based on current projection.
So Brentford are also earning in some extra money from hosting. You should know from the quiz, they are hosting the rugby team.
Samson's?
London Irish. That was from the quiz.
How am I going to remember that? We did that.
But I'm guessing, yeah, we're going to get in some money as well from that.
Yeah.
I guess maybe when we built the stadium, maybe we sort of split the cost a little bit with them. So hopefully that will help us. But we're never we're very similar to Liverpool. We're never going to be going out and spending silly money on players.
Well, the thing is, FSG in their plan is they made Liverpool self-sustainable. FSG do not put their money in. What they do is, they did when they bought it, right? But they don't take money out like some owners do either. Everything Liverpool Football Club makes goes back into the club.
Yeah, I think that Brentford's backroom staff cost must be more than some Premier League clubs, because we put a lot of money into scouting and data analysis and that sort of stuff.
But what means all the money we've made from all the money we make signing players comes from selling players, comes from shirt sales, comes from broadcast, comes from, so everything comes from all that. There's no FSG goes, okay, we'll throw in 50 million here, we'll throw in, it's not the same as Chelsea. Like if Abramovich decided to pull the plug tomorrow, Chelsea financially would be fucked. Same with City, because they've been relying on big owners paying for. They're not self-sustainable. Teams like Liverpool and United, despite United's debt issues, but they are more self-sustainable because of how big they are as teams. They're the two biggest English teams in the world. There's no debate about that. They're two of the top four in the world, based on shirt sales, based on revenue, based on everything. They are ridiculous. So those two teams would be fine if their owners decided to disappear tomorrow, whereas the likes of Chelsea and City would struggle. So that's the thing. So we're never going to be a team that's able to drop 400 million on a defense like City did 3 windows in a row. But we are a team who will slowly replace people. We won't go whole new defense. We're like, okay, we need a new centre back. We'll get him. Oh, we want to move Trent into midfield. We'll get a right back. Oh, Henderson's 32. Okay, we'll bring in a new midfield. You know what I mean, we're much smarter with it. We can replace person at a time. I'm
just wondering how long it's going to take for clubs to sort of, even if fans do come back, at the start of next season, how long is it going to take for them to recover financially?
I think it depends on the club. I think it's a club to club basis. I think teams that were well run beforehand, such as I'm sorry, I'm saying Liverpool, but it's not exactly a surprise that Liverpool were a team that a lot of people complimented about how well run they were, given the fact we nearly went bust a decade ago. FSG came in and we're self-sustainable now. They are a well-run team, whereas we know for a fact Arsenal had to take £120 million loan out. They're not a well-run team.
Yeah, because I can't charge £1,000 for season tickets this
Yeah, so I think that teams that weren't well run before COVID hit are going to really struggle, especially if they continue to spend big in COVID. Like I think Chelsea spending all the money they did
Like a
is
team
going to
like
come back and
Leeds, because
bite
again,
them.
like Ellen Road is a big stadium, and they've got a very passionate fan base. So not having all those fans in is going to really cost them.
Yeah, I
Fulham's
think
no different because their stadium's half empty usually anyway. Uh,
I do, but I think it's also like so Newcastle have been badly run by Mike Ashley for years. That's no sudden. Oh my god, that's what.
not having St James's Park full every week is going to be a
Yeah,
huge thing for
but
them.
I think Newcastle only get better if they get sold by Ashley. But that's I think how well their team was run before COVID speaks to how well they'll do when they come back. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so that's my take on that.
the COVID's exposing the poorly run teams.
Yeah, so how
Looking at you, Schalke.
and we could have nicked Schalke centre back this summer for 20 million, if that,
Well, Schalke are going to get relegated and he's going to leave.
We'll probably try and get him in the summer then, hopefully. Because he's been one of their few actually good players, regardless of position in the table. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah, and they've also got a young striker called Hop, who's American. He's been doing pretty well, but basically, it's a long story short. Schalke over recent seasons, they've just been signing players who aren't good enough, and
Bad recruitment.
They've had awful recruitment, like average mid-table players, and now they're sort of ruined. Like they haven't been investing in young players like they usually do. They've just been signing imagine signing the sort of players in the level of Danny Drinkwater and
right,
Lee
okay.
Catamol, those sorts of players.
Yeah,
that's basically what Schalke
good old
doing.
Catamol.
HITC Sevens have got a really good video on Schalke. I'll recommend that if you're interested.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I think anyone can have a look. Have we got anything left to discuss this week?
Well, I think obviously we've still to record our Chelsea segment later, so we don't know how long that will go for. So I think probably best to wrap this up. I think there's going to be a fairly long podcast anyway, because there's just been a lot going on in the past week, to be fair.
I also, like I said, I'll ask my friend if maybe he wants to do if every now and again, if he wants to hop on, or we'll ask a few people for look, we're trying to branch out so we can do a bit more different things. I'll probably ask him if he wants to do a 20-minute Super Bowl segment that we can throw up on the YouTube.
Yeah.
I could set up a Google Drive to upload that.
Well, I'm sure all of you have missed Matt so dearly, and you're crying your eyes out to sleep that you haven't got to see the London heartthrob Matt Perry in this episode.
Or his cats.
His lovely, lovely cats. Anyway, let's leave it there. Thanks for watching the two-man band. Let us know what you think.
The two-man power trip.
See you later. Goodbye.
See you. Bye.